So I'm going to start running the rear derailleur housing. So we're going to measure, cut, run that housing, and then we run our cable. But this guy's moving around quite a bit, so I'm going to use this handlebar holder. This is a Park Tool HBH-3. Hooks to the handlebar, and then it hooks over to your seat post, and it is telescoping. So we loosen this guy here, make your adjustment, and then straighten the bar, and then tighten, and it'll keep this bar from flopping around too much, since that headset bearings are moving like super buttery, so that thing's flipping, flopping all over the place. But now we have some stability. And then let's just see, since we're going to be running that, so we got to untwine this cable. When you're handling your cable, just be sure not to kink. Do not put bends in it. Do not wrap it around your hand thinking you need to grip it and pull tension super tight. All you're going to do is potentially cut your fingers off. And so usually I'm just doing fingertips tight when we're pulling. And then here's the other thing too. Right now there's a little movement in here. If you're going to be playing with the shifter, make sure there's tension on the cable at all times, no matter what shifter it is, because we don't want the head of this cable to poke out and not sit where it's supposed to. Then you go to shift and then it gets jammed in there, and then we have a whole nother problem. So always apply pressure, a little tension, just 2 fingertips pulling out. Now you can test everything. This is how we break down a system too, if you got to test the shifter alone. So I want to make sure it's downshifted, and should be an 11 speed. So right now we're sitting on 11 because it's in the relaxed position. The first click is going to be 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So I felt like there was an extra in there. So technically, if I was upshifting, that's number 1. So I almost felt like there's an extra in there. I'm going to pull tension here again. First click down is going to be number 2. So right now we're in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's see if there's another one. No, okay. Maybe I miscounted. Maybe you caught it and I didn't. Okay. This XT shifter, it's very, when you get those clicks, it's what's the word? Kind of big chunky movements, but it's very, it has a good feel to it too. It really lets you know that you fell in that gear, boom, boom. And that's going to be personal preference, whether you like that or not. But because it is an XT, when I go to downshift, I can use my thumb to push and downshift click, or I could use my index finger. So from either side, I can hit that button and get that going. So I can come in here, I could use this thumb, I can downshift. I'm going to come up again, apply some pressure, 1, 2, 3, 4. So downshifting with my thumb, 1 click, boom, or I could use my index finger and get a downshift as well. So that's just preference. Also, this XT has the ability to downshift 2 gears. So if I hit this hard enough, you're going to hear click, click, boom, boom. Same thing with the other side, but let me come up a little, apply some pressure. I'm going to come with my index. Okay, so maybe just 1 with the index. Yeah, I'm pushing hard, just got 1. With the thumb, I'm going to downshift. Oh, that was my last one. Thumb again, 2, 2. So you can drop gears. You can drop gears pretty quick if you need to drop the hammer and speed up and drop the guys behind you, create a gap. All right, so these are the Shimano housing stops for 1 1/8" down tube. So this place, basically adding these in place where a friction shifter would go on the down tube. So now I could run my housing into here for front or rear derailleur. So I'm not running a front derailleur, so maybe I just put this on just to cover the hole, unless they have something cool to put on there, but I'll have to look around for that. This tiny screws, I could put grease, or if it's a tiny screw, maybe we're putting thread locker. In fact, maybe that's a rule of thumb. The smaller the screw, the more chance of it coming loose, because we can't put a high torque on it. But of course, if you get the correct torque setting on it, which I don't know what it is technically, but just using some common sense. Here we got barrel adjusters, so this is going to allow me to do some fine tuning. If I'm loosening, if I'm unscrewing or loosening, screwing, I got attacked, not attacked. Everyone told me I used the wrong word. I said unloosening, which was incorrect. But when you're turning this counterclockwise, it's backing out, which is going to increase tension. And you can tell by the sleeve gets a little taller here. When I'm screwing in clockwise, it decreases, so it's allowing the cable to relax, allowing the derailleur to relax, creating some slack, and that silver piece just disappears. So if these are ever turning rough, it's because there's probably tension on it, there's cable going through it, and or the threads in here are just dirty, and you just need to take everything apart and get in there. All right, so I think what I'm going to do is, so shifter's on the right, I'm going to have it come around. This is where you can do what you want here. You can have your cable run across the bike and then go into your cable stop, which means the cable is probably going to cross over at the bottom. So if you're running front and rear derailleur cables, your cables are going to cross, which is okay. I've had both where they didn't cross and they do cross, and I haven't had any issues. There's no extra friction. Yeah, so what? But I may do this just so it's going to give your housing kind of a nice loop here. Or, I mean, this will work too. This will just kind of curve a little quicker and it'll come right here. So, I mean, this will be fine too. Maybe we do potato. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to run a little grease here. Just make sure you get a nice solid tightness on this. Like I said, when in doubt, if you don't know what to tighten it to and you think it's not going to be enough, go ahead and do a little bit of thread locker. And a little bit means just like a pin drop, just in case, because a little too much, you will get stuck. You will start to strip out your bolt, and it's going to suck. So this guy, shape-wise, we're going like that. Boom, beautiful. And that looks like a 3 mil. Oops. That's a 4. That's in the wrong spot. All right, I will use fingers. Come on. Assuming it's the correct threads. All right, let's try it by itself. Okay, we know that's correct. Is it long enough? There we go. I just didn't have the part on all the way. So that is a 3 mil. So I'm gonna have to go to my L wrench. Usually I go to my my Park Tool blue T handle, but one of the sliders broke. So this here. So if you have a ball end, be very gentle with the ball ends. If you got to really torque on something, go to the other side, because the ball ends don't have a lot of material. It's meant for coming in at odd angles. And this one, I'm not even going to go that tight. I mean, here I'm just going to use a finger. I'm supporting it here, making sure that tool stays in there nice and tight. And definitely got some good pressure there. A little bit for good luck. So if I had to put a torque number on that, I don't know, 3 Newton meters, not a whole bunch. So now I have a place for my housing to go into. It's kind of a bummer they coil the housing up. That's not too bad. You just don't want any bad kinks, sharp bends. This one's not too bad. Now if you want to find your logo, this just says Shimano, SIS, OT, blah, blah, blah. If you want that to show, then this will be going into my shifter first, because I don't see it everywhere. It's actually just on that one spot. So they give me some end caps or ferrule caps for this. Make sure those are pushed on nice and tight. Even take a peek inside here, make sure that the hole is open. Sometimes if they give it a cut or they chop it, then it gets squashed. But I'm just using a regular pick here. Open that up. Put your ferrule cap back on. And I'm not going to run the cable through here. What I usually like to do is before the cable is even on the shifter, I would just stick this in the shifter so it's holding it for me. But I'm not going to pull that cable out. So I can do a mock-up. I'm just going to put this close, maybe the length of the barrel adjuster. Hold, lock your finger, and then kind of pinch. And then you can just do a run. So if I'm going to stay on this side, that's what the cable will look like there. Have just a nice little bend, or I can go all the way to the other side, so you're crossing the bike and doing something like that. So you just have to have a long enough length so when you turn your bars, which I can't do, let's get rid of this guy. So when you turn your bars, you have enough cable length. So like right here, if I hold this tight, and if I can just have my handlebar or the grip come in line with the top of the top tube, right there would be the absolute minimum. That's actually pretty darn tight. So I can give myself a couple inches, and then I can straighten back up, see what that looks like. So that's what that couple inches looks like. It's kind of flopping out there. But when I turn this, and the reason we're doing this, so you're not going to be riding like this at this angle, but if the bike fell over, the handlebars just kind of flopping around, and you don't want them to jerk quickly and pull some of this housing and strain parts of that housing. And here's the other thing too, since I'm running such a huge long stack here, the bars are very high, which means it's going to need a lot longer length of housing. So say I don't like this length, say I cut this length in half and the bars come down, which means that the cable or the housing is going to look a little bit longer, maybe it flops out more, so if it doesn't look good visually, I'm going to have to trim it, which means I have to disconnect my cable, pull the cable out, make a trim on my housing, push the cable back through, reconnect everything. So keep that in mind if you're doing checks like that. So I'm probably going to try to be very nice to this cable. I'll cut it, but I may not put an end cap on it because I may have to pull it out and rethread it. And this is a nice cable. Okay, with that being said, I'm not going to worry too much about the length. When I did use the size with the logo, I noticed it's hard to see in the video, but the housing has a little kind of a crook just from being coiled up. So I'm going to see what this other side. The other side doesn't look so bad, but whatever, it doesn't matter too much right now. So again, we'll go back to this rough, and I'm gonna I'll stay on this side, and you can pinch and hold. You could even turn all the way, hold your cable, turn, and just keep the housing tight. So then you know this is your absolute minimum. So when you come and straighten up, you're seeing your minimum there. That's pretty too short. Mainly coming off of here, we do want the housing to come out maybe an inch or two and then go into a bend, not being pulled so tight that it just goes directly into a bend. That could be another rule of thumb. So I'm just going to stay straight and eyeball it. See, and then I'll do a turn. It's actually pretty decent. When in doubt, you could always add an inch or two. Cut it, put it together, see what it looks like. So I'm going to go with that right there. So I'm just going to pinch that with my fingernail. Get your cutters, save your end cap. And I've been using these Shimano cutters, these TLCT12 Japan Shimano. Lighter than the Park tool, but they've been working pretty good. I do have to kind of push them open a little more just to get around the fatter brake cable. And like I said, when in doubt, cut a little long. You could always go back and trim this. Just don't pinch your finger. Nice quick chop. And then go back with your pick. Whether it's, ooh, that one's dirty. With the hook in, because inside here is a plastic sleeve that runs the whole length of this housing. So that can get squashed closed. And if you don't think that your cable can overpower it when you're installing, you're sorely mistaken. There we go. Don't poke your fingers. Just put our end cap back on, or ferrule cap. So with these, once the caps are on, I do like to smack them on the table. Make sure they're on nice and tight. You may hear a tone change when they finally hit the end. Ooh, let's grab this guy. And I think that's open. If it's not, we'll find out. So If you can put these end caps on as tight as you can, then we're taking away some of the break-in period. You heard of cables, people say cable stretch, and that's why you have to go back and readjust something. I don't think the cable is really stretching, in my opinion. It's more so on a brand new system, especially when you got new housing, new ferrule caps. Under pressure, everything's going to start seating itself, getting tighter and tighter, moving, and that gives the feel of a loose cable. It produces more slack on the system, so then we got to go back out and pull your slack out. So if we can get all that slack out here in the repair stand, then you'll have a better adjustment and it'll last much longer, so you won't have to go back and readjust after 1 or 2 rides, or that customer comes back and says, hey man, my shifter's out of whack after my first ride. Well, he ended up breaking the system in on his ride because he was shifting, creating tension, compressing everything, ferrule cap onto housing, and then if you have how many ends, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 4 areas that had to get tightened and compressed, and then that's 4 areas that created some slack, cable slack in the system. But okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and run this through. So I'm not 100% sure there's lubrication in here. I typically don't run lubrication because most of the time there's enough slipperiness going on. Unless there's a troubled area and I have trouble shifting or something, I will add some either light chain grease or chain lube, something very light, or a very thin light grease, maybe like a slick honey, something you use on your shocks. So even here you can do some diagnosing. Now I can feel what this feels like when I'm sliding the housing over the cable. That's another check. That's diagnosing either your shifter, your cable housing, and then you have your hinges or your pivot points on your derailleurs. That's 3 sections you can break down. So your barrel adjuster over here, if we're talking derailleurs, usually we're finding a middle point. So if you don't know where that is, you can loosen this all the way and then get it started, make your turns, whether it's a click indent or just whatever your fingers can move, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I can get this in the halfway motion, typically I can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10, it's roughly in the halfway area, so I have room to go either direction. I can pull or loosen cable tension. And you can do that on your rear derailleur as well. Now brakes, on the other hand, I'm going to screw that in all the way. I'm going to go righty-tighty, bottom it out, because with brakes, brake pads will just wear over time, which means your lever is going to get closer to your handlebar. So if you want that good feel of having a tight lever, then I'm just going to loosen the barrel adjuster outward, which is going to pull tension and make that lever feel better. Boom. So now we're going to go underneath the bike. There's a couple routing areas. We need to get that correct. All right, so I'm going to turn this bike. This is the beauty of having a nice repair stand. Even if it's a portable with 2 legs, you can move the bike to some pretty good sections. Keep in mind your handlebars are going to be flopping now. Now that I have a bar on here, we could be hitting your top tube. This one clears everything, but in some cases you might bam and chip your paint. So either wrap your top tube with something so your bars won't hit it, or wrap your bars, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to take a peek underneath the bottom bracket. All right, so left side of the bike, if I'm sitting on it, right side closest to my chain ring. Cable's coming down on the right side here. So in this case, I'm going to stick to this right side, and then you got to thread it through. There's a little piece we got to thread under. Make sure there's no garbage. Cable hits the floor, it wants to pick up all this lint. All right, boom, just like that. So we're in a nice straight line, no muss, no fuss. If we were doing a cross, so say I ran my cable or my housing crossing the front of the bike, we'd be coming down the left side of the bike, and that's where I would cross over before I came here, and I would still go on this right side. So then that's where your cables would criss and cross, just below your seat tube, or down tube. But we're going to stay here. So another braze-on or cable housing stop, boom. And then your next one is here at your derailleur. So another piece of housing is going to come, and the position of where it's coming out of your derailleur is going to dictate what our arc is going to look like. So some of them will come straight, boom, it connects here, so the housing is straight. This one's up here at this angle, And the way it's angled is this, imagine a straight line coming out this way. So we'll come out and then go into a bend and then all the way down here and back over here. So these are our two spots, or these two lines arcing. So we want to have a decent arc, nothing too short, too tight, because this has to have some movement, some articulation. So we're going to do some housing there. All right, so that same piece of housing they gave us is extra long. So this is meant for both sides, your front and left shifter, but we're going to have plenty left over. So here I can go ahead and do a mock-up. I can go ahead and, no end cap here. I'm going to place that in the derailleur, boom. And then when I come down here, I want to make it like it's coming in straight, because it's going to be forced to straighten out right where my thumb is. And then now we're looking at our arc. So if I shorten this up, that's too much. It's going to a turn right away. So I don't want this to come out up a little and then go into a turn. A little too severe. So I can pull out roughly an inch. Boom, that looks decent. Pull out another inch. Boom. Kind of like the way that looks for now. And then keep in mind too, we're going to be sitting inside this braison, maybe about a ½ inch or so. So that length right there, I like that. So I'm going to put my nail there, boom, and then give that a cut. Chop, chop. And don't forget to pick open. They do get squashed, just like a clam, and then I just kind of point for the middle and give it a push. As long as you're in the housing, you won't poke your finger. But rather than be super perfect, just kind of aim for the middle and it'll pop open. I'm going to see if I can, yeah, they gave me some other end caps here, so I'm going to go ahead and use theirs. And depending on the system, these end caps, they could have a little rubber, little black rubber O-ring in there, and that's just going to hug the cable, keeping dust out. But I don't know if these may have them. Yeah, there's something in there. So this is what you're getting with, you know, an Ultegra or, you know, XT system. The end cap got stuck in here. The end cap got stuck into the ferrule. Probably has a little grease in there, that's why it's maybe sticking. But remember, put your end caps on. The other thing they give you in this kit is it's a ferrule cap with a straw kind of built in. So that straw, basically, again, it's going to hug the cable, keeping dust out. This most likely is going to go closest to the rear derailleur, so probably going to go right about here. And it slides right into your braison, your stop there. So I guess we'll use this guy. This one I'm just going to push on as hard as I can by fingers, because this is soft plastic and I don't want to smash this on the table, because this little end part, it's a straw, it's plastic straw, that'll just crush. But I'll do the other end. So this is going to sit, so the straw end's going to go into the frame, and then this end over here. And you know what, sometimes they give us a metal ferrule cap, so there's less chance of bending or flexing on this harsh angle, but not in this case. Oh, and then they give us a rubber boot, so that little rubber boot is now going to slide over the straw end over here. This end cap here, got the straw, slides over here. Then you're going to run your cable, and this is your rubber booty. This rubber booty is going to slide on this direction, just like that, and it's meant to keep dust from entering and gumming up your rear derailleur. It might seem like overkill, but who knows how much it does. So we're going to run this through the rubber boot, then we're going to run into that guy, run all the way over here. And if you get stuck, just pull your housing out and fish the cable out. But this guy's found its way home.